Welcome to the first ever podcast, Sitting In, or the first ever episode of the podcast, Sitting In. Today we got on Vincent Draaijer and Sean Angus Watson. I will get better intros, trust me. Just a quick note is that the audio from this podcast, this episode, was recorded straight through Skype, so it's not the best in the whole season, but if you can get over that, it's a great episode, so I hope you enjoy it. So, have you two ever actually spoken to each other before?
Never. No, this is the first time I've heard your voice, Vincent.
Yeah, really?
Well,
I've heard
yeah,
you
I mean,
talk
we've
before in your tutorial videos, of course.
Okay, yes.
But we have spoken
We've spoken.
through Instagram.
Number of times over text.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But here's the official meeting.
The official meeting, and it's on my turn.
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, so I think it's pretty crazy how we've all managed to meet each other, to be honest, because it's all been through the power of Instagram, right?
The internet. All on different sides of the planet. I guess you guys aren't too far from each other. I'm pretty far.
Yeah, so I'm in the UK, obviously, in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and Vincent's in the Netherlands. How do you say the place you're from, Vincent?
Zutphen.
Zutphen.
Zutphen?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Zutphen.
Why don't you tell people what it's like in Zutphen?
Zutphen is cool, man. It's like it stems from the medieval times, and it's just a mixture of the old and the new.
Mm.
No, I don't know.
Sean,
Man.
I think you'd like
it's
it.
It's kind of like where you're from. It's kind of like Edinburgh, but way less spectacular.
Yeah, to give people an idea what Edinburgh's like, we have an extinct volcano, a castle, and Sean, what else is here? You visited like a few weeks ago.
Oh gosh. Well, the castle's surrounded by a beautiful old town. I love me an old town. A good old town, a bunch of old cobblestone, brick streets. That's my kind of jam.
Beautiful.
But wait, Sean, what were you doing in Scotland?
It was just a vacation. I went to London for a couple days, and then I sort of decided on a whim that I wanted to add another destination to my trip instead of spend like a week and a half in London.
Yeah.
And so I was looking around. I almost bought a plane ticket over to like mainland Europe. I almost thought I was going to go to like maybe Copenhagen. I thought maybe I was going to go to like Switzerland, but then a train ride up to Scotland seemed the most practical.
Woo! Yeah, and it's funny the way it worked out because I saw on your Instagram, so we sent messages and we ended up just hanging out for a night, and it was such a great chat. And I think out of all of these meetings that I have with people from all over the world, whether that be like this through Skype or actually in person, we always tend to talk about the same things, which is why I think this podcast format is such a great idea to share those ideas, because we tend to talk about music, then that leads to philosophy and question our existence, and then social media.
Yeah.
So why don't you maybe Sean, you can go first. Tell the listeners, the beautiful listeners, if they listen, tell them a bit about, like, I don't know, maybe who you are. We know where you're from. I think we said that, Oregon. And maybe about like what you're doing with your music right now. What are you currently doing?
All right. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sean Angus Watson, and I'm a guitar player, multi-instrumentalist. I kind of have a little bit of a broad musical background. I started playing like cello and violin and an orchestra at a really young age, and then I played a little bit of percussion. And I don't know, I think I was early teenager when I found the electric guitar, and that was like the instrument that spoke to me the most, and I've pretty much been focusing on that for the past 10 years or so. Most of the music that I make is like loop-based, just sort of chilled out guitar music, sort of layered guitar stuff.
Sean, do you have a platform where people can listen to it?
I do. Well, It all started from Instagram. That's basically how I found all the success that I found so far, was from posting silly videos on the internet on Instagram. And then I started a YouTube channel. But then in the past year or so, I've released a couple albums that are now all on the pretty much most of the stores and streaming services that you can find music on: iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. Um, yeah, and so at this point, I'm basically focusing on recording and producing more music, getting more albums out there, and I teach guitar sort of on the side. In the past, I've done that more full time, and lately I've sort of been transitioning to more just producing my own music and teaching just a little bit. But it's a goal of mine in the future to get sort of an educational YouTube channel thing going on. My YouTube channel right now is basically mostly me performing guitar, but I think it'd be cool to sort of make little bite-sized, digestible guitar lessons for a pretty wide background. Maybe some stuff for people who've literally never held a guitar in their life before, and then maybe some more advanced stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm up to these days.
Yeah, that's cool, man. We had a really great chat about like teaching and what is we look for, and
We did.
our approaches to teaching, because they were kind of similar. Maybe we can get onto that later. But Vincent, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to, and yeah, something like that.
Something. Yeah. Well, musically, I'm. Yeah, you kind of caught me at a bad time because I haven't been really writing music all that much because I haven't been feeling it. So if I'm not feeling inspired or not really feel like picking up the guitar, I just won't. Yeah, I just won't do it because it doesn't feel right and feel forced. But yeah, I don't know, man. I guess I'll talk a little bit about how I started. Um, uh, and that's for you guys to answer. A quick question. What do you guys think was the first song I learned on guitar?
All right, I bet it was some sort of mad indie rock thing that nobody knows about from like some crazy band. Like everybody else, it's like Smoke on the Water, Seven Nation Army. What was it?
Smoke on a Purple Haze or something, right?
No, man. It's really obvious. We joke about it all the time, man.
Was it the lick? Or a minor nine chord?
I wish.
That's a good guess.
No, it was Wonderwall, man.
Same here, man.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, but I learned it wrong. I learned it like with very simple versions of the chords, and yeah, it was awful. But it gave me the encouragement I needed to kind of push forward. But yeah, same here.
Dude, I had the exact same thing.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's a funny. So I just picked up on you talking about, maybe you've not been writing as much because of your lack of inspiration. But I think that's something that I always enjoy talking to artists about, is like maybe, what they're inspired by or how they find inspiration. Because we had a good, we had a question from someone. I think it was Cass Grant, who's a former student of mine. He was asking something about the artistic process or inspiration. I think he said that. Anyway, and I think for me, inspiration comes in several different forms. But I spoke to Sean about this, I think, and a lot of my inspiration comes from some sort of a texture or shape. So it's not actually necessarily like I listened to Wonderwall and was inspired by it. Like for me, it's more like I sometimes see music or create music with the idea like shape or texture, as opposed to like thinking simply just about like what the harmony's doing. But I think that maybe relates to like certain emotions. But for example, I might be thinking about like some sort of weird shape of like two triangles next to like a square, and for me, I don't know, sometimes that's how I kind of get out a sound on the instrument. But sometimes
do you
it's
mean
also
that, like for instance, when you see it, you hear a certain vibe or sound with certain shapes?
Not quite like that. I wouldn't say I've got like proper synesthesia, or I think that's what you call it.
No.
It's more like the way I explained it to Sean was that, all right, there's something that needs to come out that's like a certain like to keep it simple, like a vibe, but that means like an emotion or like a texture or some sort of artistic idea that I want to get out. But usually the process is that I don't know how to get that out yet, so I search for it. Um, so there may be something that's like, I know I do use terms like shape and texture, but it's not exclusively that. It's like a combination of like, this chord makes me feel a certain way, but I see it and sort of feel it as like a certain like shape. It's kind of hard to explain.
I
But
remember when
like,
we had this conversation in the pub. It's fascinating to hear this because of the similarities with the sort of where I draw my inspiration from, but also like the dissimilarities, because that's I don't know, it's usually sound. It's usually a melody or something that I'll hear in a movie, on, someone whistling, or in
Yeah,
a song
same
or
here.
something. But the common ground I think that we shared was the searching for it aspect, where you sit down and it doesn't just happen immediately. It doesn't just come to your fingertips instantaneously. It's like it's quite a process to get to the point where you feel like you've represented what you feel inside with what you're
yeah,
playing.
exactly. I think that's what I'm getting to. Um, yeah, Vincent, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I feel like, because we talked about the whole process like hundreds of times, and I feel like we are a bit on different levels. Like
Mm.
I feel like you're on a bit of a higher level than me.
No way,
uh,
man.
but no, it's just different, you know. But I feel like most of the time, like the foundation and the essence for me is just as simple as like hearing something,
Hmm.
um, and then realizing like 2 weeks after that it's still in my head, and
Mhm.
then I'll do something with it or not. But I've also I've had like numerous times where I uh, I had an idea. It came straight from my fingertips, uh, and when I was done with it, I was like, "This sounds so familiar. Why? I feel like I've heard this before." Uh, and then I came to realize like it was an already existing melody from some song I heard like months ago. But I see that as kind of like subconscious inspiration or something.
Yeah,
But that's what happens to me a lot.
that's
Yeah, I don't know.
interesting.
It's
Yeah,
just
well, I
yeah,
think the common thing is that maybe I didn't express it as much, but it comes from usually hearing something, but that doesn't mean actually hearing something like ba ba ba. It's like maybe not literally hearing it, but like you hear it in your head, and it's like there's something inside that needs to come out. Um, so it's not like I have some sacred process that nobody's ever done. It's like
no,
it's
no.
just it's. I think we're all really talking about the same thing. It starts with some sort of sound, and that sound may be inspired by for me an emotion or a shape maybe, or even just like exploring just like a different voicing on the guitar, which I guess encapsulates both those elements for me, and just kind of seeing where that goes. But yeah, both like in fact, all of us has kind of different approaches because I usually don't start with melody, which seems weird to a lot of people, but usually I start with
Yeah.
harmony because I feel like for whatever reason I much prefer painting a picture, or sorry, I much prefer, well, yeah, painting a musical picture with harmony.
With
And for
words.
me, yeah, the melody seems to come second, unless,
Mm.
yeah, I'm looking at my list of tracks that I've written for the EP, and none of them came from a melody. They all came from harmony. And I know it's the same thing, really. But they came from like a set of changes or one voicing that inspired the rest of the process. But it never came by me being like ba-da-da. Oh wow, that sounds dope. It was more like these chords sound cool. How can I kind of further express it with a melody? But
Yeah.
when I eventually release this music, you'll probably realize that you'll be like, that's kind of interesting. Well, I'm not saying you'll find it interesting, but now that we've had this chat, you'll see it from a different perspective potentially.
Yeah.
But I
I'm
think that's
sure it
maybe
will.
why a lot of my melodies are simple.
Yeah, but yeah, it isn't simple, but I had something today for the first time where I heard a melody in my head, and it was more like a vocal line, and I was like, I want to do something with this. And this was the first time I had a melody in my head and tried to like translate it into the guitar.
Right.
And that was a very interesting process to see like from a different side, or the other side from where I usually start. Um, but I also feel like Reese, we've talked about this a lot as well. That um, when we're when we're talking about voicings or melodies, that sometimes you can be inspired by like the sound of one chord. And I know a lot of people have this. A lot of musicians have that. And I'm like, damn, this chord sounds so good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, but like you play a chord, and then in your head you can hear like 100 different types of directions and melodies where it can go, and harmonies. And for me, those are like the best experiences and most fulfilling experiences, because it's spontaneous. It's kind of a quick process, and the rest after the basics and the foundation, it's all fine tuning.
Mm.
And I find that very satisfying to experience.
Yeah. So would you say a lot of your inspiration then comes from one chord that's like, whoa, that was like the spark I needed, and the rest kind of just falls into place?
Yeah, and that was the same thing that we talked about a few weeks ago. That um, I usually ask you for new music, for new stuff to learn. For instance, Julian Lage. When I learn a small part of his track, the latest track. God damn, what's it called again? Uh,
What does it go like? Sing it.
yeah, it's from his latest album, from Love Hurts.
It wasn't a ramble, was it?
No, Jesus, how stupid! I never forget this name. Anyway, it's the pressure of the podcast, guys. Anyway, when I learned like 10 seconds of that song, I was like, yeah, this was the spark I needed. It was one new chord or one new progression or like angle that popped into my head. And I was like, okay, I can go from here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a lot to, you know, to bring inspiration to pull it outwards and like do something with it.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I think that'll. I feel like we're kind of all talking about the same things a little bit. But Sean, your music's mostly loop based, right?
Yeah.
So, given that it's a loop, there's only so much kind of. I imagine there's only so much space you can have to, like, for example, put a chord progression down. You know, if you're dealing with like 16 bar loop or 32, I don't know how far you take it, but what's the process for you then? You know, do you start with you said you start with a melody, but then how does the loop build underneath that?
Since we've been talking about it, I guess just in the past few minutes, I've been thinking about, okay, how do I actually come up with a tune? And I think I might actually be more focused on harmony than I had thought,
Right.
because most of the melodies that I come up with are really simple, and they sort of end up coming alive because of the chord progression that's
Yeah,
underneath.
man.
Like maybe the melody itself wouldn't be anything special, but the combination of the melody and the harmony turns it, adds a little bit of spunk to it. Um, but you're totally right. I mean, I think most of my loops are even like 8 bars, 8 and maybe 16 max, and so they're very
Right.
short. And it's I don't know, it's like it sometimes seems like a little bit of like a dance, a little bit of a back and forth between letting the chords take over and letting the melody take over to try to create something exciting. The sort of interplay between them. I try to like not write a melody that is just filling up the entire space of the 8 or 16 bars, or a chord progression that's just extremely active every moment of every bar, so that there's a little bit of high points and low points within each. Um, yeah, it's definitely a challenge to try to make a short chord progression a really simple chord progression, say in one key with only like 3 or 4 chords,
Yeah.
interesting. But that's kind of like that's sort of what I get off on, is trying to take something really, really simple and make it listenable. Because for all of this really bad pop music that's out there, that's just 3 chords and you get tired of it 30 seconds or a minute in. It's a pretty fun game to try to like break that, to try to take the same building blocks that pop music is using and turn it into something that is enjoyable to listen to. I don't know.
Yeah, but Sean, you shouldn't forget that you have your like you have a unique voice on the guitar, and I've complimented you on this before, but your phrasing and the way you use space in between chords and notes when you're soloing is like, yeah, right after 2 seconds, you already know it's you.
Oh
Um,
man.
and I think that's also the magic of why you are good at like making 3 chord progressions so interesting, because
Yep.
it's just a certain touch that you have, which I really admire, and why I genuinely listen to your stuff on Spotify or whatever. Not just
Yeah.
because I know you, but because like if I wouldn't know you, I would listen to it as well.
I think,
So yeah,
yeah, what you're picking up on there is musical style and like, for example, Sean's own sound. And actually, it's a good time to pick up on one of the questions from someone on Instagram called Black Dogs Music, who asked how long did it take for you to develop your musical style? And if
Mm.
I'll start on that, and then we can all kind of add a bit in. But I think the answer to that is that it never stops. I think for me, one of the most exciting things about music is you can't complete it. When I was in high school, secondary school, I don't know what that translates into in the US, but like I was about 13. There was a kid in the class who played bass pretty well for his age, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like meh. Um, and he says, "I'm not doing bass this year because I can play everything on it." And I was like, man, you don't get this music thing, do you? And at the age of 13, we're not expected to understand anything, or even at 24, like still, or 23,
Yeah.
23. But yeah, I think it's exciting for me because you never stop learning. You can't stop learning. And if you think you have finished something, then you've maybe just closed your mind off a little bit. Because Sean, remember when you and I sat and spoke like simply about diatonic harmony? It's like, there's
Mm-hmm.
so much like underground that you can go into, and it's like, well, the chords in C major, that's cool. But it's like, there's just so much more you can always scrape into, and then you take it further into different harmony types. So yeah, I think it's not finished. None of us are finished developing our style because it doesn't finish. However, how long did it take? I think John Mayer put it pretty well by saying something along the lines of what was it? Like you kind of develop your own musical style by copying your idols and failing a
Oh,
bunch of times.
yeah.
And I know for me it was like I was super inspired by people like well, very broad range of players. But for example, someone like Guthrie Govan, I was really into him for a little while, and I know I've taken very small parts of his music with me, but now I'm more inspired by players like Kurt Rosenwinkel, and like it's not like you steal their ideas, but just through like osmosis, musical
Can I
osmosis, they
add
rub off.
something to that, Reese?
Yeah, sure.
Because I've thought about this a lot as well, and I think another thing is that you keep building on your new inspiration. So, for instance, I started out with uh, like hardcore and metal and all that stuff, and that went into melodic hardcore, and some blues came, and all that stuff. But then you're constantly like building a foundation of what your go-to sound is, or like should be in your head. And for instance, when let's say Jimi Hendrix is your idol, you want to sound like Jimi Hendrix, then you play a lot of his stuff. But you get older and you get to know more artists, and you get a broader view of what music can be and guitar can be. And then you have Jimi Hendrix, and you have some other, uh, let's take Julian again, for example. And then you have like your interpretation of Hendrix, and then your interpretation of Julian, and that keeps building and building and building until it's something like it becomes very specific to your character.
Yeah.
And I
No,
think
that's a great point. And Sean, do you have anything to add to that? Because I don't want to jump ahead.
Yeah, I also, this is something I've thought quite a lot about, because it's at least in a lot of the guitar lessons I've taught, it's a common question, like how do you find a unique identity that's yours? How do you sound like yourself, right? And I very much sort of fell in line with what you mentioned John Mayer said, which is you sort of build off of, you copy your idols a little bit. That's exactly what I did. From a really young age, I was super into AC/DC. Like Angus Young was my first guitar idol, and
is
one of
that
the first.
reason of the SG.
It is 100%. That's why I bought the
Quickly,
SG.
let's actually. So my first guitar idol was Slash. Who was yours, Vincent?
Oh, who was mine? I think it was Mick Thompson from Slipknot.
Sweet. All right,
We
sorry,
have some
Sean. On you go.
some heavy influences. It's funny because I've gone so far away from Angus Young and AC/DC, but yeah, I very vividly remember just learning as many Angus Young solos as I could, and then of course I got into Clapton and Hendrix and Jimmy Page and all these the other sort of guitar gods, and I tried to learn as many of their solos as I possibly could, and eventually you start picking up on the phrases that they use. That's a really good way to learn phrasing. And you if you can look at an Angus Young solo as a group of sentences, a group of phrases sort of linked together, and then you learn 24 solos, and then you just start picking them apart bit by bit, the small little units that make up their phrases, and all of a sudden, you're playing your own solo, even though you're stealing from Clapton and Hendrix and Angus Young, because there's this we're playing 12-tone music, right? How many possibilities really are there out there? There's sort of an argument to be made that like almost nothing is truly original.
Yep.
And so if you're taking little bite-sized chunks from your idols and all these famous guitar solos, it's not gonna sound like them if you mix and match them enough. Sooner or later, you're gonna be sounding like yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think cause and effect. It's a fairly basic principle, but there was something that inspired the process of like playing something that maybe sounds like yourself. So it's I guess you could say it's never truly original. Although there are some artists who I think are truly original, but then again they're playing music and it's just vibrations. That's all we're doing anyway.
It's a really good question, right? Like, is anything original? Considering that as just a civilization, we've been making music the whole time, the entire time we've been making music, and we're thousands of years into it. And even just if we look at recent history with pop music and say like the 12-tone system and things like the major scale that most Western music is heavily based in, that while there are a huge number of possibilities in terms of the number of potential chord progressions or melodies out there, it is a very limited, finite set of music that can be made. But even within that, there's so much originality, perceived originality, where you hear something and you go, "That sounds cool. This sounds fresh and new." And
Yeah,
not like it came before.
I think that's where the person's voice comes into play, not their little voice, like the musical voice, because you can't play like Jimi Hendrix. It's impossible.
Right.
You can't play like Vincent. You've not got his fingers or his body.
No, but
Which
that's what I wanted to add to that is that it's also a lot about energy, and that sounds like the biggest cliche ever, but there's just a certain type of energy to every single person who puts something out or who shares his or her stuff with the world. And yeah, like you said, I could never sound like Sean, even if I played the exact same thing or sound like you or whatever. It's just something personal, man.
Yeah.
It's not
And
just like skill wise. It's more than that.
I think personally, well, just to preface this, I was listening to a podcast called The Guitar Hour, and Andy Wood was on it. Do you guys know Andy Wood's playing?
I don't think so.
By
He's
name,
a
I know,
phenomenal
but
player. He started off as like a bluegrass mandolin player, and now he plays electric guitar because I think essentially it makes him more money. But he's a phenomenal player, and what he was saying that kind of links into this is like, everybody's like killing it on Instagram and all that kind of stuff, playing like Mateus Asato covers and all that. But it's like, I feel like we have a duty, like this generation of musicians, to like continue putting out music with our own blueprint, like our own voice. And I think what I would love to hear from everybody in this circle, or really just every musician, is like at least an attempt to like do your own thing. Like, I'm not saying that like you can't continue to be a Jimi Hendrix like clone. That's fine if that's what you do, but I think like the world needs new music. Do you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
And I think if I could hear just like lots more like original music on Instagram, or from the musicians who are like really using it,
Yeah,
it's
but
like,
Reese, don't you think like original music is different for everybody else? Because I got introduced to neo soul guitar playing and neo soul music by Instagram. That was unique and original to me, but it has been around for like
sorry,
decades.
yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't mean original as in like groundbreaking stuff. I mean like we were just talking about an artist's blueprint and like them playing their stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because there's
Yeah,
just so many
okay.
like 1 minute clips of people, and I'm guilty of that. I'm working on this EP, and it's a long process, but it would just be nice to hear like music coming from inside people's heads, not just like covers and stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Like covers are great and all that, but
There's
I
a
think
little bit of like Instagram specifically, and guitar players on Instagram seems like it sort of steered the direction of everybody's goals towards. I don't know if it would, maybe it's belittling to call it sort of a popularity contest, but I'm sure we've all posted something on Instagram that wasn't our true, unique, authentic feelings, our voice.
absolutely.
Just
Yeah.
because you get rewarded for it, and you engage and connect with other people.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I think it's very dangerous. Like if you're trying to be a like have an online personality as like an artist, like kind of what we're doing. Like we have sort of mid-size slash small, to be honest, size Instagram audiences. I just said size a million times, but anyway, and if we accidentally attract an audience for the wrong reason, it can get kind of strange, because I've had a video, and I'm sure you both know this stupid funk riff. Boom.
Oh, fuck off.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I recorded that in 2 minutes before I was gonna go and get dinner with my mum, and I was like, I've not posted for a few days, and it's if I added up how many views it's probably had at least like 4 million. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Like through different shares, and people follow me for that, and it's like, if you are listening to this podcast because of that riff, that's sweet. Let's stay friends, but at the same time, it's like that does not represent me. That's a tiny part of like where I'd like to, or what I'd like to display musically, and I never thought that it would blow up. And there's stuff I have put out that I'm like, well, that's what I was maybe feeling at the time, but not now, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous, because if you, for example, end up getting, for example, I said for example twice, that was frustrating. Anyway, if you end up with like a follower of like 1 million, right, complete, but everything you've done was like a cover of Metallica, and then you like, I don't know, release like a straight jazz record, it's like, what? That's weird.
Yeah.
And you might be successful. You might not get, the people might not care about it.
Yeah,
Right?
because they've followed you for something that you're not as an artist.
Yeah, but isn't that like even when you have like YouTubers or even guys on TikTok?
What is TikTok? Like,
Yeah,
I've
it's
saw
some
it. What is
stupid
it?
app, man. I feel so old, like when I see all those
Same.
new trends, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? How did this happen? I can't relate anymore.
Mm.
How did it happen that it already, pop culture already passed us?
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's so quick. It's so fast. It's like you know, videos blow up, they go viral, and people get famous or recognized for one tiny portion of what their online personality should be or what they want it to be. And people are like, "Oh, do that thing, because
Yeah.
Right.
that's why I followed you." And I feel
You
like
know,
that's the
there's
same
that guy.
thing that's happening on Instagram as well with guitarists, and that's the reason why I stopped giving a shit actually about Instagram. Sorry to be blunt, but
No,
it
that's a
just
good.
feels like a circus, man. It really doesn't feel sincere at all.
I've been
Yeah.
feeling a lot of the same things about Instagram lately as well. But to answer your question, Reese, TikTok I think is like Instagram but even shorter. It's even shorter form videos, like
No,
15.
that was Vine, dude.
It's basically like I think it's like that. The truth is I don't use TikTok. I have no I'm not in
I'm
the
not
know.
hip.
I don't think so. I don't think I am hip.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we could probably speak about social media forever, but I think my advice to someone listening who's maybe wanting to get started on it is and this is so cliche, and I say it a lot, but like just kind of be yourself and be consistent. You know, it's like yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm not gonna go too much further into that, but
Thanks, Dad.
yeah, it's all right,
It's a
man.
good no, it's a good idea to
I
just
agree.
honest expression will never be a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
And many of the other ways that people sort of act and behave on social media can sort of subtly over time, you not you maybe it's an intense word, but you can like corrupt yourself a little bit or your purpose, whatever it is that you got onto social media in the first place to do, by paying attention to maybe the wrong things like the number of views and the number of likes that you get, and if your videos get shared. But it'll never get old for someone to just be themselves and post the videos that make them happy and not that weren't created with some sort of ulterior motive to be successful.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely. Like,
I gotta
yeah.
be honest though. One more thing about social media and in particular Instagram, like it's just an honest thought that I have. Like,
Mm-hmm.
would I still be like this? Like, I don't give a shit, blah blah blah. If my videos were still having like tens of thousands of views and like so much interaction, and I feel like maybe it's also some, yeah, it's an ego thing as well, but maybe I was just so bummed out by not by losing all that interaction that I was like, yeah, I've lost my motivation to make videos because people don't really care anymore. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking, like, do I
I
really not care, or is it because of that, or is it a combination of both, or I don't
I
know, man.
think only you can answer that truly, but I think regardless of like this outcome or this place we've gotten to so far in the conversation, I think I am absolutely grateful for like Instagram and what's helped me do because we wouldn't be having this chat right now. And
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, like yeah, I've met people all over the world. I've got students all over the world, and it's really just because of that. So it's a huge asset, and I'm going to continue using Instagram, and I'm trying to step up my game a little bit. So, yeah, expect to see more, but I'm trying to stay true to myself.
Hey, sorry for interrupting the podcast. I'll just be 1 minute. If you're receiving value from this podcast, consider supporting me by getting some of the Sitting In merch. From teespring.com/stores/sitting-in-podcast. That's teespring.com/stores/sitting-in-podcast.
So why don't you, Vincent? You can go first. Tell us a bit about like the gear you use, or if there's any guitars you particularly like right now that you're using.
Um, um, I think the guitar, like the best guitar I own, is the Shure Gold.
Mm.
Sure,
And
go.
I don't know
Shure,
anything about Sugargolds.
Oh man, if you'd come to my flat, you would have fallen in love with it that time you're in town. It's basically there's this really great. Sorry to jump on your
Yeah, sorry,
your
Vincent.
bit,
We just
Vincent.
got
no,
talking.
that's okay.
All right, there's
That's
this
what
really
it's all about.
great acoustic guitar company called Faith Guitars, and I've had one for years, and I just love it, man. It's like they have a great balance between like vintage and modern, but my one in particular just sounds like super modern. It's a very rich sound. I love it. And we were chatting, and they told me that they actually have a sister company called Shergold, who was a company in the maybe in the 70s or something, but then they stopped. And so I was like, oh, whoa, that's cool. And so we got chatting, and they sent over a guitar to check out, and it's the same build quality, which is what I'm most excited about, but on an electric guitar, and it's honestly phenomenal, man. You should really check them out online.
That's cool. So I know Faith. I've played a couple Faith guitars. I didn't know
sweet.
that Sherwood was their sister electric guitar company.
Yeah, it seems to be like that.
It's no joke, man. The neck is really the best neck I've ever like played.
Really?
For me, it's just something. It's something different, but in a good way. I can't explain it, man. But yeah, I'm not that experienced with guitars at all because I've been playing a Strat I got from my dad. He used to play it when he was younger, uh, and I've used that, and it's like I believe it's from some sort of like Dutch. Like you can compare it to a Walmart or something.
Okay.
It's just the
Great.
cheap as Reese has played the Strat. He knows it's actually shit. And I don't know, man. I have a lot of like, yeah, just cheap ass guitars. That I mean,
I think
for me they're good.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not. Yeah, how do I say that? I'm not used to anything else. So yeah, that's why I said like the neck was like really something else to me. But yeah,
I think that's very interesting because tons of people ask you like, what guitar is that? How do you get that tone? And
Right.
it just goes to show, man, it's like it's not really the gear you use.
It's
You
how
know,
you-
it's a small part of it, but yeah, it's how you use it. Like I would be really interested to hear you on, I don't know, like my new D'Angelico, for example, and hear how you respond to an instrument like that.
yeah.
But yeah, Sean, why don't you tell us a bit about yours? Because I know you've got this very fancy baritone guitar.
Oh gosh, yeah. I've been in the middle of a move, so I haven't played that one too much. But I need to get back in the habit because it's such a strange instrument. For the longest time, I've been like a one guitar guy. I have this SG that I play that I've had since I was just kind of, I don't know, I've had it for 12, 13 years now, and uh, I never really thought that I needed another guitar. And I
You were
really
wrong.
I held to that firmly. Yeah, right. For years, I was like, this is it. This guitar is all I need. But I'll tell you what, recently, just in the past couple months, I've started playing other guitars. That trip to the UK I took at my friend's house in London, I played. He had a Strat and a Tele and a PRS that I played for a couple hours each, and they've all felt amazing. And I was like, man, maybe I do need to get another guitar. Um, but so the fretless baritone is this crazy guitar that I guess the short version of the story is I have a good friend from my hometown who wants to be a guitar builder, and we decided to build this sort of prototype crazy guitar that we didn't really know of anything else like it that existed. That was kind of the motivation to build it. It looks like a Strat, kind of a classic white Strat body, but it's a baritone, so it's a significantly larger scale length than a normal guitar, and it's fretless. I think that's kind of a throwback to my cello days. I wanted to try to get back to, it's just a whole different beast playing something without frets. Um, it's going to be a really interesting challenge trying to make music with it. Although, even though it's capable of sort of leaving the 12-tone Western music sort of paradigm, I still am attempting to play pretty basic pop music with it. Um, Anyways, we could talk a long time about that fretless baritone guitar, but I
It
guess
looks amazing too.
it really is pretty. It's sort of, it's a prototype. It's a little rough around the edges. This is like one of the first guitars that my friend had ever built.
It's ambitious.
It was a little ambitious, but he performed really well. It's considering that he built it from scratch. It's awesome. It blows my mind that it didn't exist, and then he cut a bunch of wood up, and now it does exist. But yeah, I guess the whole, a point I'm trying to get across is I'm trying to buy another guitar at some point. I just my girlfriend's a guitar player, and I just helped get her a Telecaster, a sweet
Cool.
custom T90 Telecaster, and I've been playing it a bunch, and now I want to get a Telecaster of my own.
Yeah.
I think I finally shook the one guitar bug, and now
It's
now,
dangerous. I was once
say
that
goodbye
guy.
to my savings now.
Yeah. But tell us a little bit about your SG and maybe what amps you use as well.
So the SG, it's a faded SG special. Got it from Guitar Center for like pretty cheap. I got it because it's the cheapest Gibson SG that you can buy. I think it was $700. And like I said earlier, I got it because I was obsessed with Angus Young and AC/DC. And so the first thing that I did was I bought Gibson's Angus Young signature humbucker, put that in the
Nice.
bridge. And then a little bit later down the line, I put this Seymour Duncan P90 in the neck. And of course, since then, in the past 10 years, I never play with overdrive or distortion now, and I hardly play rock at all. It's basically all fingerstyle clean guitar.
Wait, Sean, when you started Instagram, didn't you start with covers?
Pretty much, yeah. That's the whole
Because I
reason.
know I've seen you, like, you use the same angle every time, and I didn't follow you back then. This was like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? I've never seen his face. This
Yeah.
damn SG that I've never seen. I don't know, it's just funny.
Yeah, that was a little
Sorry,
funny.
yeah.
That many people have no idea what I look like, because for the longest time you only saw this really small cropped in angle. The thing was, I got really into cameras when I was in college, and I bought this nice camera, and I got this really nice lens for it. Although it was a very cropped in lens. It's the minimum focus distance was like 3.5 feet, and the whole field of view is very narrow. So in other words, not a wide angle at all. And I was sort of shooting videos in this cramped little room, and so it was kind of like a make the best of what I had available to me to shoot, to get these little tiny videos that are just the guitar framed. And
I
just
had a
nice.
similar experience actually.
Anytime you're shooting videos in like a small flat, it's like, okay, you got to get kind of creative.
Yep.
And I was sort of obsessed. I was maybe too obsessed with like the video quality, and I would sort of bend over backwards to try to make the videos look how I sort of set this crazy standard. And it's recently in the past, I don't know, year or so that I've been like, the video quality doesn't matter that much anymore, and it might be more valuable to show a video that you can see my face than it would be to have this perfectly crisp, sharp video. Anyways, yeah, that's the SG that I play. For the longest time, I didn't use a guitar amp. I have a tiny little audio interface. It's like a PreSonus audio box USB. Got it years ago, and it was like $100 interface that came with some recording software. It's like your classic 2-input interface bundle, kind of like the Scarlett 2i2 or whatever. And for the longest time, I just plugged my guitar straight in to one of the inputs, and then in Ableton, I would use a couple digital effects. And that was it. That was my guitar tone for most. That was like for 2 years almost.
Wow.
But in the past year, I got in with Laney amps over in the UK, and so I use a little like small 5-watt tube head. I still kind of use it differently though. I don't have a speaker or a cab actually, and I use this direct. And this amp has a really cool feature. It's got a direct XLR output out of the back of the amp. And so now I go my guitar into the Laney L5 Studio, and then XLR output from the amp into my interface. And then I've got a couple of like 4-inch Mackie studio monitors that I use for monitoring. So it's a little bit of a different guitar setup. I don't have like your classic guitar amp.
I'm surprised, man, because the tones you get are beautiful. Like I thought you maybe had like a couple of different cabs or something. or
Yeah,
amp.
a lot of people do. The truth is, I have almost no experience playing through cabs or using microphones and miking amps at all. It's like it's intimidating to me, the thought of trying to mic a guitar amp, and so
Right.
I kind of like am scared of it, honestly.
Interesting. Cool. Well, I guess to answer the question on my side, I'm just gonna say what I use most because I've got a lot of stuff sitting in this room. But yeah, I'm rocking the D'Angelico guitars. I've got the XLSS, and I just got an EXL1, which is a big, huge jazz box, and I love it, man. It's got a set of 12s on it, and it just reacts like it breathes so much. I love it. And yeah, I've got like a Strat, a Tele, Shergold, and an Ibanez GSM as well,
Wow.
and then acoustic.
Jesus.
I've got a
How
lot
many
of gear.
guitars do you have?
In this room, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8.
Oh my goodness.
But each one is a tool.
That's
And
true.
my main guitar is the XLSS, the D'Angelico. But the other ones are all absolutely handy, and I've used them extensively. That's why I have them. And my amp that
What
I'm
was your
using,
first guitar?
my first guitar was just like a Strat copy that I don't have anymore. But the first guitar I got with like actual money that my granddad gave me was an American Standard Strat, which is just a beautiful guitar. And I played that for forever. I was that one guitar guy for so long. I just played blues and had a tube screamer and a Fender amp. And that was me sorted. But then I don't know what happened. I bought the Ibanez GSM and then started, like just guitars started falling out of the sky. And anyway, the amp that I use most right now is actually a DV Mark Jazz 12, and it's a solid state jazz amp. And I used to play Fender amps, and I loved how bright and clear they were, but I don't know, I really love the sound of the solid state amp, and I would never have thought, but I really do like it. And if I want, it's called DV Mark.
DV Mark.
Yeah, DV Mark. You might know them because they have a bass amp company called Mark Bass. They're based out of Italy. But yeah, I just really love this amp. It's tiny and it's portable and it sounds great. But if I want to go for the tube amp, I have a really beautiful Super Statesman. Yeah, and that's that'll do nearly everything. But I'm just really enjoying the solid state sound just now.
Do you use
What would you guys? What would you guys? Because I don't know anything actually about amps and stuff. But you guys know like what my style is a bit. What would you guys like? To which angle would you guys direct me? Like what brands or what kind of
Fender.
models or?
Fender? Oh, I was gonna say Supro.
Oh well, Supro, yeah, of course. I see Supro as being quite a high-end company. So it's like for your first amp, I probably wouldn't go that route. But Supro, man, you would sound amazing on my Supro amp. But if I was you, and I recommend this to most people, I think like a Fender Blues Junior or like the Hot Rod if you want something bigger, because like they just sound amazing. Like I really love those amps, and they're simple, they're affordable. A Blues Junior could be like, I saw them go for like £400.
Okay,
like,
yeah, that's not terrible.
No, not at all, man. Like Super will set you back nearly £2,000. Like that's an expensive amp. Sorry?
I didn't know that's how much Supros cost.
Well, I mean, I think they've got small ones, like smaller ones that are a bit more affordable. But yeah, I think the Fender amp a Fender amp would be good for you, Vincent. Even if it was like one of those smaller Fender, I think it's called like a Champion or a Super Champ or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. What would you recommend, Sean?
What are you playing through right now, Vincent?
It's a Vox V20 Plus or V30 Plus. I'm not sure. It's a combo amp, man, and I've been playing it for 8 or 9 years. But I've never really played shows or anything. I've always been that bedroom, living room guitar playing guy. And to be honest, for me, it does the trick right now. It has a bit of grit on the clean channel. The built-in reverb is more than fine. So yeah, it's a small amp. Reese played it as well, but he picked the he picked the he preferred the Fender combo amp that I had. That was like one of the
Yeah.
first amps that I got. But yeah, I do notice the difference in sound very clearly between Vox and Fender.
I know that there's a couple good Vox amps. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
The AC ones are pretty solid.
The
Like,
AC ones are great. I think those are a little pricey. They might set
Yeah.
you back $800 or something. But I think they have one called the Pathfinder. It's like
all right.
a little bit. I think it's like a 10 watt tube amp. The Vox Pathfinder. I think I've played it before and it's cool. But yeah, the AC-15 and the AC-30 are both great amps. But what Reese is saying, I think, is pretty solid. A Hot Rod or a Blues Junior from Fender.
Yeah.
You almost can't go wrong with those amps.
I would like to add a curveball.
Okay.
So, given that, for example, let's just say you continue like doing the stuff you're doing and you don't have plans to, like, I don't know, take your music to a band, which I know you do want to do that, but if you were going to continue doing the things you're doing, man, I would just buy like and this might be total counter like to maybe what I would do or what you guys would do, but I would buy a Line 6 Helix Stomp and just check out like some amp modelers, because
Oh.
you can just like, you can try out tons of sounds, and if you find something you like, sell the pedal and buy the actual amp, or just keep the pedal because it sounds great as it is. So I would even experiment with that kind of stuff, but I don't know if that's what you're looking at.
Well, I mean, I'd be open to that. I like the room and possibility of experimenting with stuff before I dedicate fully to. Before I like go swinging $2,000 at some super amp or something. That's, I don't know, man. But yeah, first.
Yeah.
I feel like a new guitar. For me, like a good guitar. I mean, I have the Shure Gold.
Tell them what you're eyeing up. I know what you're getting.
Oh shit, my phone fell. Yeah, the Ibanez GSM.
Ooh, the GSM.
That's, dude. I don't know, man. I feel like the semi hollow is perfect for what I'm doing for my sound. But you know, another thing, like Sean, it's because of you. I still want a guitar with P90s on it.
Is it really?
Yeah, it really is.
Just buy some P90s, man. The Shure Gold that I've got's got P90s, and they're so nice.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much. I'm sold on P90s. It would take a lot to convince me to play a guitar with a different single coil or a humbucker in it now.
You sold to the P90s. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm a P90 hack.
All right, cool. Excuse me. So how about we just finish with like a quick fire kind of thing from a couple of questions I got on Instagram. How's that sound?
Okay.
Yeah?
Cool.
And if any of you guys want to add in questions at the end, we can maybe do that as well, all right?
Yeah.
Sounds
Cool.
good.
All right, I'll just pick a couple, and we're not going to answer them all because some of them are a bit too long. All right. So from Louis_Nuge on Instagram, he says, how to play Vincent's style. Do you want to answer that, or do you want one of us to answer it? Because that would be really interesting.
Ooh, okay, I'll answer first, but I'm
Right.
really curious about your answers.
All right.
How to play my style? I think I don't like using the word signature thing, but I think one signature thing that I'm doing is like I'm really, really digging in the strings.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That's exactly where I was going.
Oh, wow.
I use very thick picks. I'm sold by Hawk picks.
Hawk
I really
picks.
love those
Ooh.
picks. And they just, I don't know, man. It feels so great to like put all your energy into one note on one string and like just really. I feel like this may sound dumb or whatever, but I feel like I can play like soul music, kind of like alternative soul indie music, but with the intensity of hardcore and metal, because that's how I feel when I play. I feel like I play music that's a bit like gloomy, atmospheric. Maybe you'd call it no twinkly melodies or something. But I feel the intensity of hardcore when I play. So I think that's where the insane raking and stuff comes from as well.
Yeah.
But
No, that's
yeah,
cool.
I'd say that's the thing I do, and like hone in on major seven.
Yeah, I think we'll try and keep this part short, but just play like a drop 2-second inversion C major 7 chord with the rest of the strings open, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that feels like Vincent. But yeah, all right, let's move on. So, other question from someone called on Instagram, I am Joe Del Pillar, I think I said that. So his question is, if not music, what then? Any hobbies? So maybe I could start. I like long walks along the beach. I really like rock climbing. I've been doing bouldering for maybe the past 8 months or something, and I just really enjoy that. I do that. That's nearly all I do other than play music now. Yeah, I'm really into that right
Just
now.
music and rock climbing for you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I do love like walking up mountains and stuff like that, and I really enjoy mountain biking, but I don't do it too often. What about you two?
Well, I'd say the thing that I'm like passionate about most is a little random, but I think we maybe talked about this for a bit, Reese, in the pub. It's airplanes.
Oh yeah.
I really want to get my pilot's license, and I'm just fascinated with things that fly.
Sick.
That's just a lot of my day to day. My mind is occupied with thinking about planes. I sort of
Wait.
Once you start hearing them fly over, you just like can't stop paying attention. There's just planes flying over all day, every day.
Amazing. What
It's
about you,
kinda
Vincent?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Jesus, I don't know. There are a lot of things that I'm drawn to, but don't have the skill for yet. But for instance, I would really love to know how to paint, and
Oh.
I
Cool.
really enjoy painting when I do it. But it's like I do it like once every 6 months or so. So,
Oh wow.
but yeah,
I,
that's something I would love to get better at or do. And yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, man. Next question.
so this is from my twin brother, Lewis Gilchrist, actually, who is honestly one of the most creative people I know. He's so good at photography and he's really great at writing. And just he could be a stand-up comedian if he wanted as well. Anyway, he asked, I'm gonna try and paraphrase, but basically, what does music mean to you personally? That may be quite a hard thing to answer, like in a short space of time. But like, what he said was, what would your meaning of music be? Like your personal dictionary meaning. Like what? I think that maybe
Music
like,
we
what's it mean
listen
to you?
to or music we write?
Or just music.
Yeah, see, that's hard, man, because I got into a short discussion on Instagram about like what is music, and I always go back to I'm quite a reductionist, so I take it down to like what's vibrations, and it's like, that's stupid because then that means that the tree is vibrating, therefore it's music. So it's a fallacy to say that, but yeah. This is partly why I said maybe you guys could answer it because I'll go too far.
It's a very difficult question because it's hard to not like drop on cliches.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah. All right. Let's just do it in one word. I'm gonna say I don't know, expression.
Expression. I was leaning towards connection.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
It-
A connection to your expression. All the same.
Vincent, what's your word?
Yeah, I was also truly honing in on connection, but maybe like for me it's more inner connection, like finding a balance with. Okay, this is too cliche. Okay, but
No,
yeah,
that's cool, man.
connection.
That's cool. That's great.
Interconnection is good.
Yeah, I'm with you both on that. All right. Lewis also asked who is Boggy Pete, and nobody has an answer to that. Sorry.
Boggy Pete?
Don't. It's like some inside joke that we have. Nobody knows who Boggy Pete is. It's a fictional character. All right, let's do a few more quick ones. These are quite hard questions to answer quickly, but Cass Grant Media, again, he asked a question earlier. Good guy. He says, how does an artist make serious change in their community? So that's a huge question, but does anybody want to shine some light on that?
Say it again.
Yeah, sure. How does an artist make serious change in their community?
Okay.
Dedication.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dedication.
Yeah.
I would think it's back to that thing we talked about earlier, just truly honest expression.
Yeah.
If you're as honest as you possibly can be,
Yeah.
people respond and react to that.
That's what I was gonna say. It's what you put out is what you get back in, and it's the same for like the music you put out will attract people in your community that is hopefully of a similar wavelength in some form. But yeah, that's a huge question because we could speak about the community aspect of it and like
After hours.
how to build that, but we'll keep it simple.
It's for the next podcast.
Yeah, there will be more. Another previous student, Ez Blake Oven, I think that's maybe how you say their username. She's asking more and more and more tips on soloing. All right, I think my perspective of solo is like you're trying to say something. It's not just a random sort of thing that your fingers just throw onto the guitar and it's like none of it really related. It's like, for me, what I'm looking for is what just happened, what's happening, and where's it going, and how can you tell that story in your solo. And that's, motivic development and all that kind of stuff. But I think if I can very briefly give someone something to work on in solo, and we'll be talking about that kind of thing. It's like, all right, so you just played that, what comes next? Why does that come next? And when you're doing that in an improvisational setting, it's something that takes a lot of practice. But there would be that, just to keep it brief.
Yeah, I'd say on a psychological level, the most important thing is don't be scared and don't think too much.
Sean?
I would say learn it. We sort of talked about it earlier. Learning other solos, for me at least, was really a groundbreaking thing for improving my own soloing. Was copying, like literally copying note for note what someone else did in the past. Because it felt like for me, the more that I did that, you get this large catalog of solos that you know how to play in your head, but no matter how well you know them, you're going to start messing them up and you're going to start mixing and matching, and it's going to sort of fluidly turn into your own voice once you have totally filled your own cup with what's been done before.
I totally agree with that, man. I think, yeah, like from a more like introducing someone to solo or playing solos, that's 100%. That's what I would be doing as well, because it's like you wouldn't move to France and just expect to pick up the language because someone says, right. Well, what just happened, man? Like, be in the moment. It's that you need to learn how to say bonjour, je m'appelle Reese. You know what I mean? And you copy and you learn.
Right.
And je t'aime.
I think that's how you learn language as a baby, right? You're just copying what you're seeing around you.
So I think, sum that up. Like, I would totally agree on that. Learn people's solos, but learn them actively. Learn what's happening and start to pick it to pieces, and you'll start to make up your own sentences. All right, I think we should leave it for there. There's more questions, but I think we kind of touched up on a lot of them.
Yeah, I have one question though. Would you guys see a possibility to, like, in the future come together to put our styles together? Would you see that happen? What
I would say is, all right, my feelings on collaboration. If we can't do it in person, no. Because there's just no, I can't pick up a vibe, like a real vibe from you sending me a video. And I've had so many people wanting to collaborate, and I'm like, yeah, let's give it a try. And they send me a video, and it's like, that's not us. That's you. And then I add something.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want it to be us. That's the whole point of collaboration. So yeah, I can imagine us three in a very unexpected way being able to fit together nicely musically. Yeah,
because Reese, I never expected that we would connect the way we did with our styles.
Yeah.
and the way we play. So I think if you'd put the three of us in a room together, there could be, maybe this sounds pretentious, but there could be something really interesting that could come out of it, or it would be a total flop. But who knows?
I don't think it'd be a
I
flop.
think it would. Yeah, I don't think it would be a flop. I think we'd all bring something very different into the pot. You know, it'd be a very interesting recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and communication wise, we're all like, I feel like we three are kind of on the same level. So
Yeah.
All right. So what about this? If you're listening to the podcast, leave us some feedback. Should we create a trio album? You can
live-
fund it. You can fund it for us. What are you saying, Sean?
I said a live album.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Just
think it'd
take
be
one of your
really-
loops and like we just layer it up. But we can keep that conversation for another time.
yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. Like a guitar trio album. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed episode 1 of Sitting In. We sure had a good time recording it. Be sure to go and check out Vincent and Sean on their social medias. And if you want to support the podcast, go and pick up a piece of merch from teespring.com/stores/sitting-in-podcast. I'll see you in episode 2.